topic, the Montreal Alouettes. During that same game that Rob Bagg was playing with Saskatchewan against Montreal, Anthony Calvillo took a shot from Ricky Foley. It looked innocent enough, however, you see his head hit the turf. Looked a little rattled. They took him off for precautionary reasons. Turns out that he's been diagnosed with a concussion. The severity is still not quite known, but they know that he's going to be out at least another week. But if you look at the growing list, they lose him, they lose Jamel Richardson, Whitaker's still banged up. It goes on and on. They had to bring in Anwar Stewart, I believe, one more time to the team because they need some help on defense. Is the age finally showing with the Montreal Alouettes?
I think the Montreal Alouettes have been good for a long time. And, you know, some coaching changes over the off-season, that's probably where the biggest problem is. It's not so much a matter of their age. Like, it wasn't an excuse the last couple of years when they were in the Grey Cup. I think when you're an organization like the Alouettes, you should have no problem rebuilding, especially in the CFL. It's not like you really spend 5, 6, 7 years like they do in the NFL where you have to draft and rebuild. There's only 8 teams, so I think it's just an off year for them. Obviously, Anthony Calvillo himself, definitely getting old. Succession plan should hopefully be in place by now. But you knew he was old 5 years ago when he was winning the Grey Cup.
They brought in former Heisman Trophy winner from Ohio State, Troy Smith.
Yeah, and I think shouldn't be looking at his replacement for a while.
Yeah.
I don't think Duncan McPherson, where's he done now? I don't even know where he is.
Well, there was always the rumor that they sent him down to the AFL, and I believe you mentioned this, so he would avoid that dispersal draft because he might be picked by Ottawa. But I don't know if there's any truth to that.
But now they need him, and they can't use him.
No.
I think in a lot of positions for Montreal, they were so focused on winning season after season, they didn't really look to the future. And there's a few positions where they're pretty weak bringing guys up. You see Saskatchewan, they have an injury, another guy comes up, and all of a sudden, he picks up where the other guy left off.
But how much of that is Jim Popp, and how much of that is Brendan Tammany?
It's all Jim Popp right now. I think so. I think Jim Popp is the one that hired a coach that was in over his head right from the start, and everybody knew that at training camp. I think that Anthony Calvillo said 2 days into training camp, he knew, oh, we're not in Kansas anymore. This is not going to work out. And when you have a veteran quarterback that 2 days into camp knows this guy's in over his head, it's a bad decision for Jim Popp to hire that guy. As much as Jim Popp has been sensational, he's built up this great team, a few things have slipped away from him.
Was it a bad decision for Daniel Alfredson to wear Senators gear? Now, it's not an official practice. It wasn't like he was with the coaching staff or anything. He was just with a bunch of the players. They're having a bit of a scrimmage, which is fine. I have no problem with that. That makes sense because former teammates, he's loved in Ottawa. He can do whatever he wants. However, he was wearing Ottawa Senators gear, his old gear. To me, that doesn't make any sense because you are now part of the Detroit Red Wings. If you wanted to skate around, if you had green socks, black socks, the socks doesn't matter. It's the fact that he was still wearing a licensed Ottawa Senators practice jersey. Is he out of line? Is Alfredson out of line for doing so? Because he's under contract with Detroit.
This actually came up last night. We were talking about this, that the Bobcats kind of had a scrimmage and guys had whatever equipment on. I don't think it's that big of a deal personally. I mean, these guys are hockey players, let's be honest. He probably just grabbed his bag and went to the rink, and whatever he had in for a jersey he threw on. Like, I really don't think it's that big of a deal. He probably doesn't even have any other equipment at this point. It's just he grabbed his Senators bag.
He's got to be some NHLPA gear, his Swedish gear, something, right?
It could be worse. He could have wore a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey, and that's the thing. You wore a Toronto jersey in Ottawa, then they got a problem with it. Like Elfie probably just showed up at the rink. He had
exactly.
I guess in the NHL they don't have to return their pants, but in other levels of hockey you have to return all your equipment. I guess you get to keep it. That's but why doesn't he have a set of Detroit jersey or a uniform or pants and socks and everything like that? Why doesn't he have that? I'm sure Detroit can probably afford to send him that up to Ottawa.
Well, I don't think he pays for a cent of his gear, right?
Oh, no, nobody does, not in the NHL.
You'd think he'd have a care package when he signs that says, here's all your gear, that's Detroit Red Wing logo, but
he might not have it yet. He might not have it yet. And it's like too much played into this.
Exactly.
He just wore an Ottawa jersey. He could have worn any jersey at all, but it just happened to be a Senators jersey.
You play with him a long time. I still feel if you was a free agent, no problem. But if you're under contract, you'd want some Detroit gear, or even just wear some generic practice jerseys. I'm sure the NHL or PA has something. It's not like they don't. But I digress. Let's move on. Major League Baseball, instant replays. Here's something that I know the NHL wants to add. NFL's been doing it. CFL's been doing it for years as well. It's coaches' challenges on replays. They wouldn't be allowed on necessarily balls and strikes, but they'd be allowed on home runs and certain other events. Do you guys agree that they should do this in Major League Baseball? Or is it just even more of a time waster? Because if you watch baseball, there's no time limit. It just keeps going on and on, especially when it's Boston and New York. That game goes on for like 5 hours.
You know, and that's it. You know, you're sitting in the ballpark. It's going to be very annoying sitting there waiting for a delay. You're sitting at home. It's even more annoying that you're flipping through the channels waiting for this replay to get finally finalized. You know what? Leave it up to the umpires. Let them call a game.
But we're already fed up, and this talk has been brought up because of that. You look at some of the calls, never mind the balls and strikes. There have been some times when it doesn't matter who it is, you just start scratching your head because you're like, that was not even close to the plate. And we've had that a number of times this season. But there's plays when, you know, a guy's off the bag at first and all of a sudden he's called out. And I'm like, well,
it's going to
things like that should be.
There's going to be half
right?
the discretion on what replay you can do. Like you're not going to replay balls and strikes. That's just
and that's the
ridiculous.
thing. They said they won't be doing that. But home runs, if a guy's on base, they'll be given coaches challenges. So they'll get 2 a game, or they'll be given 2. If they get it correct the first time, they'll get to keep their challenge and have them later on in the game.
I think it's a good idea.
I'm not a fan of 4.5-hour baseball games.
Well,
That's the issue.
the balls and strikes thing, it's, you know, that's all part of the game. Who's your umpire? You know, which way is he leaning? He likes balls a little lower in the strike zone, whatever. That's all part of the psyche of the game. But when it comes down to a home run, over the line or not over the line, or a guy being tagged out, it's black or white. I mean, I know it's close. They're going to make human errors, these umpires. They're only humans. It seems like it's come up in baseball a lot recently. So nothing wrong with being a little more precise. I don't think it should get into the gray area where they're calling strikes and balls. I think if there's an issue with an umpire, you discuss it after the game, just like if a ref.
And the thing is, millions of dollars are at stake because teams can make the postseason and not. And if it's blown by an umpire because he called a double rather than a home run, or he called the guy safe when he should have been out, that is going to be the big key. Millions of dollars are at stake.
It's just it's like watching EA Sports now. You know, we're going to be almost a video game baseball with so many replays. That's the only thing concerned. There has to be a limit how many replays you can do in a game. You're not doing it every inning, and all of a sudden it's a human rain delay.
Oh yeah, that's, well, like I said, Yankees and Red Sox all the time. Hey, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we got Over Under next.